Good afternoon from Mickey and from me from Castle Goring. Welcome back, and if you are newcomers, welcome. Uh, Today we have quite a few questions and one or two uh, interjections from me, I'm afraid, because of course quite a lot is going on. Needless to say, with the dreaded duo. And I am inundated with questions about them and information about them. And I am rather hoping that in the next video also I can cover such material as uh, things that people have asked me about. For instance, my late stepmother-in-law, who is going to have a film made, actually it's not a film, it's a television program made about her life. I think it's called A Very British Scandal, and it is going to be the divorce of my late father-in-law and my late stepmother-in-law, the Duke and Duchess of Argyll, which was the most sensational divorce in British history ever, actually in Scottish history, because Scotland and England have different legal systems. But we'll get to that hopefully sooner rather than later. That's not new news, that's old news. So I think we don't need to stress about that. But if anybody else is interested in anything else aside from Meghan and Harry, please let me know and please ask the questions. And now we plunge in. The first two questions are from E. Essington and Kylie Logan. And I'm going to more or less read them as one because they really pretty much cover the same ground. Prince Harry takes a job as executive at Silicon Valley startup. The Duke of Sussex is going to work for fast-growing employee coaching and mental health startup, BetterUp, in his latest foray into business. The plot thickens. Yes, it does, doesn't it? But it goes to show what I said when I wrote Meghan and Harry, the real story. Do not underestimate them. Their audience is not Britain. Their audience is America. They don't care that the British Commonwealth and the British people can't stand them or love them or loathe them or anything them. They only care about making mega bucks in Hollywood and presenting themselves as this tremendously woke couple who will become not the Duke and Duchess, but the Emperor and Empress of the universe. So their attitude is William and Catherine can take the British crown and the British Commonwealth. They will take the rest of the world. Next one, Kylie Logan. The bloodletting laugh out loud. Look at ButterUp, the new company that's had Harry. Apparently, if you Google it, there's a review from a few years ago that they discriminate against people of color. Couldn't make this stuff up. Don't this couple spend time to research? What qualifies a mental health coach? Because you need a master's degree with 5,000 hours supervised controls. Mental health is a medical and serious condition not to be taken lightly. Well, I'm afraid I do not know about any complaints about BetterUp because I thought they were a startup company and maybe they are being confused with someone else. I will say, though, it's a very sharp-eyed observation that there are no people of color running the company. So there we have the great advocates for racial inclusiveness, and they have joined Well, Harry has joined and is working and has been since January, supposedly, with this company, which is, I have to tell you, is rather well connected. I mean, it even has one of the backers is the United Arab Emirates Sovereign Fund. So they're very well financed, I think, to the tune of 300 million. And according to Alexei Robuchon, who is one of the founders, along with Eduardo Medina, the company is worth $1.7 billion. It's never filed accounts, it's never made a profit. So, I mean, it's all notional, but I gather nowadays that's the way of the world. You know, you start up something, you say it's worth however many hundred millions or billions, and then people take you at your word. Well, it would be wonderful if I could decide that I'm worth $200 billion and then everybody just takes me at my word, but it's not going to happen. Anyway, basically, what it is a business. It is a business where if the information that they have put out is correct, people pay thousands of dollars to get advice, such as you used to get from Lucy Clayton in the good old days when girls went to charm school, about presenting yourself well so that you will get a good job, and that, you know, if you have problems, they refer you to various coaches. I think it's actually a rather good idea. But let's face facts. It's dealing in human coinage, but it's not humanitarian. There's nothing charitable about it. It is a money-making enterprise, as indeed are pretty much all of Harry and Meghan's initiatives. They cloak themselves in humanitarianism while giggling gleefully all the way to the bank. And I am not criticizing them for making money. I'm not even criticizing them for saying they have an interest in humanitarianism. I will, however, criticize them for rank hypocrisy. Because the fact of the matter is, if you can't even respect your family, you can't get along with your family, you dish the dirt on everybody publicly as well as privately, where's the humanitarianism? Where's the example? People are supposed to set an example by their own conduct, not from the lofty heights of you do what I tell you, not what I do. However, that is not the only money-making enterprise that Harry has got himself involved with. And I mean, I congratulate both him and Meghan for their initiative. They have been very adept, as I try to point out in my book. She is a clever operator. The title of my book was going to be Operating at the Highest Level, the Meghan and Harry Double Act. The publishers wouldn't let me use it. Harry has also become one of the 15 members of the Aspen Institute's Commission on Information Disorder, which was launched yesterday. You have to laugh because this is funded by Craig Newmark, the entrepreneur, brilliant man who founded Craigslist. Involved with it is James Murdoch, Rupert Murdoch's son, who stepped down voluntarily. And if you believe that, you'll believe anything. Last year, I think it was, or maybe a year before last, from his father's company because of his extreme left-wing views. His wife, Catherine, is also one of the 15 members. Craig Newmark is notorious in media circles for having destroyed the print medium industry almost single-handedly with Craigslist, which destroyed the ability of the print medium to actually generate ads to a profitable extent the way they used to do so before Craigslist. Now, some of the print barons can be over-egging the pudding slightly, but the reality is that Craig Newmark is definitely responsible for having put the first main banana skin under the publishing industry. Now, I know this to be a fact because I have been in publishing in one form or the other for 40 years. And I know that all of the print companies have been suffering, starting out because of Craigslist, but also the internet. And it's rather ironic that Harry has joined this extremely left-wing institute that is trying to muzzle the print medium and also trying to muzzle the internet. Now, they have some very interesting backers, but it has to be said, it is basically a billionaires' club for censoring free speech, because at the moment, certainly in Britain, there is no need for censorship. I can't speak about America because I don't know enough about America. But the little bit that I know tells me that there is also no need in America to censor either the internet or the print medium. There are laws in place already that if the newspapers are going to behave destructively towards you, you have legal recourse. I know what I'm talking about. At the moment, I am suing one of the main newspaper companies in Britain for defamation. I was rather hoping to not have to address this issue at all until it comes to trial, if it comes to trial, because I don't want to poison the pond, so to speak. However, since this is as opportune a moment as any, and people have been writing in asking me about it because there was a report in last week's Evening Standard, and I don't know if it was in any other paper as well, stating that I had won round one. Then, of course, they also, typical, they also had to get something wrong. So the judge had ordered that the offending newspaper, which is a left-wing newspaper, by the way, and was extremely abusive of me, and that the newspaper has to amend their pleadings, the judge said. Well, of course, you know, the courtesy of one shark for another, the Standard had to say that both of us have to amend. No, both of us don't have to amend. The Mirror has to amend. And they actually even quoted the headline, which was the sordid world of entitled elite. Well, If that doesn't tell you everything right there, sort of man the barricades and chop off the heads of the elite, because the Mirror is a very left-wing publication. And one of their journalists told a bare-faced lie about me that has had very serious consequences. And it was a completely indefensible lie, but I have been actually advised that there is every possibility that they are going to try to take it to trial, because they have a political agenda, and even though they will lose, they will be able to rope in the names that were mentioned in the article, that included Prince Andrew, Boris Johnson, Jeffrey Epstein, Jacob Rees-Mogg, Michael Gove, and me. And it's quite possible, therefore, that they will decide that their political agenda makes it worth their while to take it to court and have a sensational trial, throwing loads of mud at what they call the entitled elite. These are the sort of people that Harry and Meghan are in bed with. I mean, you couldn't make it up. You really couldn't make it up. Censorship, aggressive name calling against the established order, no question of bothering about the truth if the truth stands in the way of a good story. Abuse, denigrate, lie about, and try to destroy the reputation of anybody who stands in your way and who is either centrist, which I am, or right-wing, or indeed left-wing, but not batting on your team today. Dishonorable. In my view, people like that are dishonorable. And I think that I have to agree with something that Lawrence Fox said. Now, I don't know if all of you will know who Lawrence Fox is. Lawrence Fox is an English actor, a member of an English acting dynasty, the Fox brothers. There's Robert, who is a director. There is James, and there is Edward, both of whom are actors. And Lawrence is the son of one of them. And he has said one or two things in terms of standing up for freedom of speech. He has occasionally over-egged the pudding, but that's a minor sin, because his major tenet is to protect our right to be able to disagree with each other. And he has said yesterday that he now understands how the Nazis were able to take over Germany in the 1930s to the extent that they did. Because what you might not be aware of is that the Nazis never ever had an outright democratic majority. They never did. They did it cleverly by propaganda, aggression, rioting. Many of the things that are happening today in the Western world happened in the 1930s. And let us not forget that the Nazis were not a right-wing party. They were the National Socialists. They were a left-wing party that became a dictatorship. They were not a right-wing party. People seem to think that when they say Nazi, it's right-wing. It wasn't right-wing. It was left-wing. Think of their name, the National Socialists. That's what Nazi is an abbreviation of. And I think it's important enough to spend the time on these momentous matters, because we rarely seem to be involved in the West in a struggle between individual liberty and right of choice and what the other side of the coin will call community. But it's not community, because community is simply another word for depriving the individual of his or her liberties. A community is made up of individuals. There is no such thing as a community of non-individuals. Collective is the aggregate of the individual numbers. That's what the community is. So when you hear these woke left-wing idiots like Harry and Meghan and some of the other brain-dead creatures that think they're so clever, speaking about community, like community is sort of a magical concept. It's not. Community and society, the old word for it, are simply the aggregate of all of the people in that community. How can a community have freedom if the individuals within the community cannot be free to express their differing opinions? I think it doesn't make sense. So, to plunge in to Missy 101 UK, and her photograph is of a non-Caucasian. This is how I feel about that very ungrateful Baitch, she says, B-A-I-T-C-H. Thank you, my dear. Thank you. It's so nice that you have skirted around the issue. Many of us were there at the Windsor Great Park to welcome her with open arms and open heart, just to be treated like a fool. It hurt. It really hurt. Most disappointed in our boy Harry. How could he have betrayed our love? How could he? Very easily, my dear. Harry has left the British people behind. We are insignificant. They are on a quest to take over America via Hollywood, via PR, via their connections, and they are succeeding. I hate to point it out to those of you who think that they are failing. We in Britain see them for what they are. The Americans don't. And again, I went into this in my book, Meghan and Harry, The Real Story. There are significant cultural differences. There are significant differences in the way news is reported in Britain and in America. If you really want to know why they're succeeding and you want a breakdown of it, I would suggest you read my book, because it's covered extensively. And I hate to disappoint those of you who would like to hear that they're failing miserably. They're not. They're not. They may ultimately fail, and I think they ultimately, most likely, will fail. But make no mistake about it, they are succeeding in acquiring more and more supporters. I think they have made one or two miscalculations recently, and I think that they will be losing some of their heavy-hitting supporters. But once the dust settles, it's amazing how short people's memories are, because the reality in business, it's all about making money. It isn't really all about making money, because you should have ethics while you're making money. And I don't mean pretend ethics, I mean real ethics. But usually it's all about making money. Laura Good wants to know, Lady C, do you think it is just a matter of time before we see Oprah and her ilk abandoning Meghan's ship? I'm not so sure about that. I have a degree of respect for the calculatedness with which Meghan and Harry have been going about playing their cards. I think they have made some serious mistakes, and I think that they may ultimately damage their brand, to use the vernacular. But I think they have gone about rolling things out very cleverly. Because the Oprah interview, which has been really disastrous in terms of their reputation in Britain and the Commonwealth, has actually not been disastrous in America. And they have buried that bad news in America, and they have very cleverly ridden the crest of the American wave by making two prestigious announcements in the last 2 days. This further boosts their desirability in terms of America. They are very much, I hate to say, in danger of being taken very seriously. At face value, that is, at their estimate of their own worth. Now, I know that it's a very California Hollywood thing to say that you are the greatest thing since sliced bread and ultimately people will believe you. Well, that's not a very British or a very European thing, but it is a very Hollywood thing. And Hollywood is a big deal in America. Now, I also think that many Americans see straight through them. But I think it's a finer run race than people realize. And will Oprah dump them if they turn out to be a liability? Of course she will dump them if they turn out to be a liability. But as long as they muddy the waters just enough for them to be able to continue to flourish and present themselves as what they wish to present themselves as, which is people of note who are noteworthy and who should be listened to and who have prestige, I think the Oprahs of this world will be right up there, doing licky. So, next question. Mrs. Hercule Poirot says, Black women are 7% of the population here. Oprah made her money off all the white women who supported her show, magazine, and products. To thank them, she now says they are all racists. And what is my opinion of that? I would say it's deplorable. I would say it's deplorable, but I would say that Oprah is effectively a very ruthless businesswoman. And, you know, I don't think the niceties are anything that she really does care about. I mean, I remember in 1993 when I was invited onto the Oprah show, and I said I could not do it because I was doing another show. I was informed in no uncertain terms, which was really nothing but blackmail, that if I didn't accept it, it was also arrogance as well as blackmail. If I didn't do their show, they would blackball me and make sure I never did their show ever again. And I never did. Well, here I am, hale and hearty, and it's made absolutely no difference to my life. It shows the way Oprah functions. On the subject of Oprah, I think it's important that I actually share a certain amount of comments because it shows that the silenced majority is actually opening up their mouths. C.S. Pride Griffin 1980 says, yes, Oprah built her career on a white audience while believing white people are despicable, hateful, racists, and disgusting. It shows, too, she is just as racist as any true racist. Well, that's your opinion, and I'm not going to disagree with it. Because I actually think her comments are very, very, very adverse to harmonious race relations. CZ says, what I find hilarious is that Megs wanted to be seen as this person who made huge strides in the battle against racism. Personally, I think she is really causing some progression on that front, just not in the way she hoped. She has highlighted the trendy views that many people hold that I believe is progressively causing more harm than good, such as that all white people are inherently racist and need to be punished. The number of black people on YouTube calling her out is truly inspiring. I agree there. I've had tens of thousands of communications from people of color about her, and 99% have been very positive in terms of what I'm saying, not in terms of Meghan's conduct. By showing her true character so openly and fully in that interview, I think she is teaching so many people to judge every person as an individual, which I believe is the only good way to combat racism. Yes, I think that is a positive side effect of the Oprah stroke Meghan stroke race row. Because, you know, just because people do not have a platform and are not vociferous and do not have access to fancy PR companies the way Meghan and Harry do, and they don't have access to vast audiences the way Oprah does, doesn't mean that the average person doesn't see what's really going on. And I have been equally encouraged by the tremendous groundswell of support that the British royal family, and what I have had to say, has generated from people of color all over the world. I think it's wonderful because we live in the real world. You see the Oprahs and the Harrys and the Meghans and that sort of person, they don't live in the real world. They dip their toes in the pond of reality when they wish to wash their smelly feet. Otherwise, they're not dipping their foot in the pond of reality. While we have to live with it on a daily basis. And I think that's a huge difference. So, and I will end with a quote that somebody called Alicia Mackenzie has been kind enough to send in by the greatest living black philosopher on earth. His name is Thomas Sowell. Google him. He is a man of tremendous stature, extremely admirable, and someone well worth listening to. And he says, racism is not dead, but it is on life support, kept alive by politicians, race hustlers, and people who get a sense of superiority by denouncing others as racist. Thomas Sowell, thank you. I hope everybody will listen to that, because that is where it's at. And to summarize, I will say, I hope this has not been too heavy. I hope it has not been dull. I hope I'm not too much on a bandwagon, but I think it is very important for each of us to stand up and be counted, to, as the Megans of this world would say, find our voice and use it, because we do all have a voice. And to me, it is refreshing that so many of what I call the silenced majority have been articulating their support for the anti-racist lobby that we represent, and for the freedoms and the decencies that we in the Western world have striven for, struggled to achieve, and have achieved, and they are now in danger of being destroyed by institutions like the Aspen Institute, censorship under the guise of care. I mean, I have to tell you, when a politician or a billionaire tells you that he cares, and he cares so much that he wants you to give up your freedoms to him, you'd really have to be an idiot to believe him. And I know that the average person is not an idiot, because I come across average people all the time. And I have far more faith in humanity than these people do. And on that note, I would say thank you very much for listening. I hope you have enjoyed this. Please like, share, subscribe, and press the notification bell. Thank you very much.